Good late evening to it. It's Saturday, December 21st at 10:27 p.m. I'm a few hours late. I don't think anybody's too wrapped up in this. I don't have any feed at all here. Let me know if you jump on and you're hearing or seeing anything. Let me know because I don't look like I'm getting anything here. There it goes. Okay, so I apologize. YouTube's doing what it does. I don't know if anybody will tune in live. If you do, God bless you. Purdue was rolled earlier this evening. I was away from the house, but I wanted to come back and post something just to have it on there, just because for continuity's sake, I guess. Purdue loses their fourth game of the season and was really never in this game, if we're being real honest. Like, I think the hardest thing about this season for me as a Purdue fan, it's not that they're losing, because I expected them to lose a lot of games. In fact, I expect them. I think I may have picked the preseason, the pre-con exactly correct on the amount of losses. Nothing to be proud of, but the way they're losing, I think, is the hardest thing to swallow. Because when they lose, not only are they losing, they're not competing. They're not. I mean, they're trying hard, but they're not even close. They're in the A&M, Penn State, Marquette, and now Auburn games. They don't look like they belong on the same court as them. This is such a weird thing because they look great versus lesser teams. I guess the best thing Purdue can do is get to playing lesser teams in a hurry. They just look overmatched. And I knew Auburn was going to bring the physicality and a better version of some of the style of play that has been beaten up Purdue figuratively and literally so badly this season. So, but they just looked outmatched. Like somebody said that there's, an absurd amount of juniors and seniors on this team. A lot of 23 and 24-year-old guys. I wasn't using that as an excuse. People are dumb, and I mean that on Twitter. If you said I was using that as an excuse, you're a moron. I was stating a fact. That's the way things are right now. There's no excuse for getting your ass kicked, but Purdue is playing teams that are bigger, stronger, more athletic. This is unusual because I don't think. If I look at the entire team, I'm like, man, Purdue's got some players on the team. The ironic thing about today's game is you have two of the best athletes on the team in Colvin and Heidi. They were completely blanked. They were taken out of the game by Auburn's just sheer athleticism, their scheme, their physicality, their relentlessness. It was not close. Before I get into the stats, which thanks to our friends at Home Field Apparel, head to homefieldapparel.com, enter Boiled25 at checkout for 15% off. And when you're on campus and you're a little frustrated because Purdue may have just lost a game that you're like, man, I didn't see this one coming, go to the fire station, maybe have a brew, take it easy, take a load off. Go to the fire station, turn left, and then you're going to see AJ's sign. Go in there, and they're going to treat you well. They're going to brighten your day if you've had a day like Purdue just had down in Birmingham. Burgers, beef, and beer, that's AJ's, eataj's.com. Rough game, though. Really, really rough game. And no other way to say it. I'm going to look at the stats real quick. I already know most of this because it's been a while. Purdue loses by, 18 points. They were down at the half by 15. They were down by as many as 30, I believe, in the second half. Just absolutely stomped in this game. Johnny Broome played, even though he had an injured shoulder. There's some things you can be upset with as a Purdue fan. I don't like the fact that the officials don't do anything about when a guy taunts right after he dunks on a Purdue player, get right in his face. Happened twice. Refs don't do anything about it. I don't expect any NCAA officials to do anything right or well, but that's just kind of bullshit. Purdue's already getting whipped, but I would think you could counter that and say, how about do something about it, right? And I understand that point. But this team, this is a tough thing to swallow. I knew Purdue would lose to Auburn. I knew Auburn would take it to Purdue physically, but the fact that they were down by that many and it looked like they were going to lose by 30. It was a lot like the Penn State game that the 18-point loss doesn't look quite as bad as the 30-point deficit that it should have been. If they had kept their starters in, would they have won by 35? Maybe. I mean, yeah, maybe. And we can say we're angry because a lot of people on Twitter's a horrible place. When Purdue's losing, it's really not fun at all. Not fun at all. and I don't know, it's not the same people I'm dealing with. That's the funny thing. It's a different group. It feels like, I know my buddy Nate Harden and I were going back and forth just like we would normally during a win or a loss, but there's a lot of people on there that just the garbage comes out of the woodwork, and it's no fun. It's no fun. And I'm spending less and less time on there right now. So need things to get better. Right now, the first round of the playoff is on, and Ohio State's up on Tennessee. Just give you a marker what time it is if you're watching this on delay or listening. So, like I said, Trey Kaufman-Renn, 15 points, 8 rebounds. He was 7-10 from the floor, but if we're real honest, Trey Kaufman-Renn, he looked completely scattered in this game, like panicked. He'd get the ball. He looked somewhat out of control. Braden Smith, really, I mean, like they were smothering him. They were extending their defense out. They were in the passing lanes. Nothing was easy for Purdue at all. They couldn't get anything going at all in the first half. He finishes, I mean, he stuffs the stat sheet like he usually does. 8 points, 6 assists, 3 steals. Had 5 turnovers. Purdue didn't have the horrible turnover game that has been one of their markers. So you're like, oh, that's the problem. Just clean that up. I don't know, other than seeing more production out of guys that are so inconsistent right now. I mean, Harris only has 3 points. Like I said, Heidi and Colvin, 0 points. Lawyer played a solid game. In the first half, it looked like big game Fletch might be there, but they kind of bottled him up in the second half, and that went away. But Fletch was solid. Raleigh Burgess had a couple good plays in the second half. Caleb First, man, he's got to play meaner. He just has to play with more intensity and more suddenness and more whatever. And he had one play where we saw what you need from him on every play when he's in the game. But he played a lot of minutes. Let's see, at the end of the game, he played 14 minutes. They just have to have more out of the bench. I've been saying this for a couple weeks. Waddell got in the game at 3, which is great. But CJ Cox, he was, what did he shoot? 3 for 5 from deep, 16 points. He hit his free throws. At one point, Purdue was like hitting 40%, 36% of their free throws and 20-something% of their 3-pointers in the first half. So not only are they getting their just cans kicked around and not being able to move, the offense just looked completely inert. They couldn't score in any way. Let's see, shocking. They got to the free throw line 23 times, ended up shooting 65% from the free throw line. But yeah, they got out rebounded again, which is what happens this whole season. And this was a downer. So the best thing Purdue can do is move on and get into conference play. That's what's next. Let's see. Yeah, they play after Christmas on the 29th of December. They'll play Toledo, and then they start the real Big Ten season at Minnesota, which has been a house of horrors historically for Purdue, and who knows? But one of the best things Purdue can do is play at Mackey. I mean, that's really what they need more than anything. So they lost their 4th game of the year. They're 8-4 now. All of a sudden, you start thinking, can you get to 22 wins on the season? I think it's a fair question. And the perspective has to have changed for most Purdue fans based on just the thrashings they've gotten. Not the losses, but the fact that they're just getting beaten so badly. It's almost like what we were talking about during football season, right? It's not the losing, it's the way they're losing. When they play good teams, when they play athletic teams, when they play experienced teams, these teams that are laden with what the NCAA has become. You can blame Matt Painter all you want. That's fine. Matt Painter's philosophy has worked really, really well. How he's handled the portal, and it's caught up with him. There's no doubt it's caught up with him. So should Purdue, next season you get up to, I think it's 15 scholarship players. I think the rule changes next year. And then the other thing you get is JUCO players now, their time in JUCO doesn't even count. So you can leave JUCO after a couple of years. You come in as a true freshman. So then guess what? You're still going to have lineups of 24-year-olds. It's still going to keep happening. And they're going to extend eligibility, right? They're talking about a 5th year. Whatever. Why even have eligibility caps? Just let the guy go as long as the university will keep him. I mean, hell, it's not college basketball anymore. But Purdue is definitely not in step with the rest of the game the way it's going. And this is what Jay talked about last April. He said, was this Purdue team in the Final Four, were they the last version of a team like this that had been built pretty much from the ground up with one transfer? But they were just a bunch of guys that came up through the program. Maybe. It really may be. But regardless, Purdue does not look competitive against really, really athletic, really defense-minded, really intense, really strong teams. And they're going to play them all year long in the Big Ten. Nate Dolans is here, says bummed and bruised Boilers in Birmingham. Yeah, I was trying to do some alliteration there. Is that the right word? I think so. But yeah. Rough. Adam P says, good evening. My wife just said 20 seconds ago, Boiled Sports Guy never came on. Did we miss him? No, you didn't miss me. It was a tough day. I knew I had plans today at a friend's house to watch football. And I asked my fellow Boiled Sports guys if one of them could bail me out. Nobody could. So I knew it was going to be late. But after the nature of the loss, I was like, I'm not going to rush on here. I appreciate all you guys being here live that wanted to hear what I have to say and wanted to meet here with each other. This is tough. And it probably would have been nice to vent together a little bit. But I'll be honest, I had one eye on a football game and one eye on the Purdue game today, and I'm kind of glad I did. So don't know about you. Kevin Albuquerque says, good evening, Dowd. Tough playing against better teams this year where the chance of winning is nil. Tougher seemingly not finding a path forward. And this is a very good point. And Handel Jones, if I don't think he's on here right now, and I have talked about this, is how do you improve? And this is where you have to lean heavily into the guy, the millionaire on the bench, or the millionaires. I think there's only one right now. Last year, Purdue had a couple because Edy was there. But I don't think Purdue has another millionaire coach on the bench. I really don't. Unless guys have been really good with their money, and that's none of my business. But there's one guy that really has a chance to prove his worth yet again by trying to find a way to make this Purdue team better. They have so much that they are not good at right now. I mean, it's wild. Like it's pretty incredible. They will look better on the 29th. I can assure you they're going to look much better. Part of that's because they're playing Toledo. But what this thing is, Painter loaded the schedule. Painter and Babinski loaded the schedule, and because this is what Painter wants. This is an old Michigan State Tom Izzo type of philosophy. Load up the schedule, take your lumps, get better, and then by March be better. I just have a hard time finding the path of how this team's going to improve. The biggest way the biggest way this team improves, honestly, is Harrison Cox play more consistently, and Heidi and Colvin play more consistently. So you're asking for personnel to grow up. This is the hardest thing about this, right? It's not really a scheme issue. We know the schemes can work. The coaches need to do a little bit better job, I think, at creating. There's no doubt. But what can you do when you don't have enough ball handlers, right? What can you do when you don't have enough athleticism? What can you do when you don't have enough strength underneath? This is tough. This is tough. You need Burgess to be a year older, right? And I hope all of us have kind of our big boy pants on, because there's going to be more of this year. Team has a lot to learn, a lot to get better. The funny thing in the past years, right, where the teams were close, after a week, a 7-day break of practicing, they would come back and they would be dialed in. This team, it's not that they're not dialed in. They just can't get there, right? They just can't get there. So sorry to be so bleak, but this is the way I see things. I think it's going to be tough to get a lot better. I think the best thing they can do, again, is play in at Mackey Arena. I think this team is going to be different. They hit shots at Mackey. It's really odd. Heidi and Colvin, they're in slumps at the same time. Harris is in a slump shooting. Even Smith missed a couple open shots today. Is it as easy as just going seeing the lights in Mackey and that magic plays and then Purdue comes back and plays really well? I think it kind of is. I think Purdue will play better in Mackey. Obviously, the next game playing against lower competition helps. Maybe that helps their confidence, but everybody needs more confidence right now. They don't need to hear a guy like me being critical. That's for damn sure. Need to be in verse says, agreed. I expect some L's this year, but being blown out due to lack of toughness is difficult to watch. Yeah, this toughness thing, man. As Purdue fans, we're really accustomed to seeing teams that can take the fight to teams and can take it when a team wants to fight them, right? If it gets tough, Purdue gets grittier, they get grimier, they get down on the floor, they go get the ball, right? They do what they have to do. This team doesn't have it right now. They don't have the fight. They don't have the toughness. Auburn is exceptional, though. I hate to overreact because everyone was overreacting on Twitter, everybody. But Auburn's really good. They looked exactly like I thought they would versus Purdue. I didn't think it'd be down by 30 during the game. That's the toughest thing for me. Scott McCollum says, freshman brought them back. Cox should replace Smith. That is not going to happen. And that's not going to happen. You can see 1,000 reasons why that won't happen, but I don't agree with that. What I think, if you're going to do anything, you could mess around with the wings a little bit. Maybe not have two wings playing, so go with a smaller guard. But the problem is, Painter sees the problem there. The rebounding is a huge issue for this team, and so you take Hyde out of there to replace it with one of these guys. I mean, what he could do if you want to get creative, Scott, is you could say, yeah, we're going to bring Smith off the bench, but that's not really the same idea as the Edy starting and Trey Williams coming off the bench, right? That was the whole idea of like, we're going to come in harder because when we bring in our second string, we're going to bring the guy who's more experienced and, he's going to be fresh legged and that sort of thing. Most guards are not at all tired at the first, second, third breaks, right? They're just not. And so if you don't start Smith, who is your best player on the court, Scott, he's the best player there. And we can complain all we want about Smith. Smith's been tough all year. This was not a good game. Smith has been one of the few guys that can take the fight, that can get beaten up, and he keeps getting back up. A lot of Purdue players this year cannot do that and simply don't seem to be big enough, strong enough to do it yet. A lot of guys complain a lot when they get hit. There's one guy in particular making me nuts to watch that. But yeah, taking out Smith is not the answer, in my opinion, Scott. You can think it, though. Karen Grulock says bench scoring or lack is a huge issue. Agreed. So maybe that's what Scott's talking about. Put Smith, have the best player on the team coming off the bench, you'll have bench scoring. But you're just kind of messing around with the personnel. Let's see. Joe erased 2 messages. Somebody reacted to him. Cody says they complained about the refs, even though Auburn played better. That made me mad. Complained about the refs. Yeah, Auburn could win it all, by the way, Bob. I agree. And in fact, I'd say I think they're the best team in America. No doubt. Joe Inslee says, no one in the big is as good as Auburn. No question. I think Auburn's the best team in America. Again, looked like a bunch of college kids playing against grown men in the NBA. Yeah, the size differential was pretty awesome in that game too, right? When they were D'ing up on Purdue players up top, they're just so much bigger. Their guards are bigger. Their bigs. I mean, what's his name? What's the All-American? Sorry, I can't remember his name, but he was, he and TK are much different, but his build, man, he's big. He's a dude. So all those guys are. They're old, they're experienced, and they're athletic. They're very good. Karen Grillock continues, not very likely that we get to 21 wins or another Big Ten championship. No, I don't think a Big Ten championship is at all in the cards. And I've heard some other people in the Purdue family think that that's definitely on the table. I just don't see it. I hope I'm very wrong. I don't see it. I do think 21 wins is a possibility. I don't think that's that much of a tall order. Not like Big Ten championship. Those two things don't have to both happen. Okoldi says, wonder how many people hit the portal this season. I hate this era of college basketball and football. I hate it. I'm so glad that Purdue has been able to avoid it, at least in one sport where guys just head for the exits if they hit adversity. Because if you want guys to hit, run for the exits, you'd think after the FDU game they might do it, but that was pretty amazing. That tested their mettle and they all came back. But the one thing about if guys hit the portal, it will force Painter's hand to go get guys out of the portal, because Purdue already is kind of behind, because this year's signing class, I think, is only 1 deep right now, I believe. So they're probably going to need to go to the portal regardless to get 1 or 2. So if guys hit the portal, you're going to have to get 3 or 4. And then we're in a whole different question about culture. There is a way of doing things. Purdue likes to do them, and they should not screw around with that just because you have hit a little bit of a bump here. I mean that. I'm not saying don't go to the portal. That's not my point. My point is there's a way that Purdue likes to do things. Don't throw that out. Don't become Illinois, where every year it's a completely different looking team, a different system. Everything changes. It's pretty amazing that Brad does what he does. Underwood does what he does at Illinois, because they are so different. But he's not alone. That's college basketball right now. Many coaches do this. Kevin Albuquerque says, I heard that Michael Jordan's still year eligibility. Maybe we can get him through the transfer portal. 55 or 60, whatever. What is he, 62? 62-year-old Jordan? I really don't know. He's old. But yeah, I think if you had Jordan in his prime, Purdue would still struggle. One guy right now is not going to do it. Jordan is prime, sure, it's gonna be better because it's gonna change the way the game goes. But Purdue really needs another. Honestly, they need another big man to come along quickly, right? They need Burgess to come along quickly, or First to find himself. But I think you're asking guys to do a ton. Like that's the whole thing. Development takes time, and that's the rub. And that's we are in an instant coffee society, right? Everything gets done right now. And we knew there'd be a hiccup this year. Everybody knew there'd be a hiccup. If you didn't think there was going to be some sort of price for losing Edey and trying to go the natural way and get 5 guys from scholarship, out of high school, there's a cost to that. Even good freshmen, right? I think the freshmen are good that are here. I think they're quite good. I just think they're playing guys that are very, very experienced. So that's time. That's the next thing you need. Boilers 012 says, is there a point to requiring athletes to attend class anymore? It's a good question. Half tongue in cheek, but the way the NCAA headed seems more like pro sports. It is. It's not more like pro sports unless like semi-pro. It's pro sports. It's pro sports with your alma mater on the front of the jersey. And the question is, the guys that are coming to your alma mater, did they want to go to school there, or they just want to play sports? And this is the very, very interesting thing. Painter has said, I really want guys to value their degree. And he says that's one of the things that is a important piece of the pie, that these guys come in, they want their degree, and they want to play basketball. They want to be part of it. TKR is a guy that is a different bird. He's an introspective guy. He's really smart. He wants a Purdue diploma. He's a smart guy on and off the court. But right now, it's frustrating to watch other programs do things differently and be very successful. Let's not lose our wits, though. It was April of this year that Purdue had their best tournament outcome ever. Just everybody pump the brakes. Take a deep breath. I know this sucks. It's horrible. I'm with you on that, but let's not overreact. Will Hardy says, what do you think about Jakari not playing much today? Do we dare give Waddell a real chance? I don't see what it hurts, to tell you the truth. Colvin needs to create a little bit more too. Sorry, just ranting. No, you're trying to figure things out. I think it doesn't matter who you look for. I don't know why you wouldn't give Waddle more of a chance. Why wouldn't you? They need a shot in the arm. And I don't know, I've never read anything in practice that tells me that Waddell is like this shot in the arm spark plug guy. I've never heard that. I think Waddell's a really solid athlete and he's a good shooter. He's long, but I've never heard that written. And maybe somebody who's sat through practice knows more than me, and that's fine. I want to hear about it. Tell me about it. But maybe if nothing else, you'd say, this is the guy who's busting his ass and he's gone from 11th on the bench. Now he's starting just to get everybody's attention, the smelling salts, whatever, and say, that's what I need. I need a guy that's going to sell out like this. And you say, hey, if I see one inkling that you're not going to do that, you're not going to play very many minutes. You'll go right back to where you were. But Purdue needs something. There's no question they need something. So, John Hawk says it takes time. That's exactly right. This whole thing takes time. So development takes time. Purdue's always been a developmental program, and development takes time. Will Hardy says Auburn is the team in middle school that presses you the entire game, claps in your face, gets mad when the ref calls a foul. Yeah, I coached a team like that actually, but they weren't middle school; they were high schoolers. We played a diamond press the entire game. And I had the guys, they were cranked up. We had a bunch of intense personalities, and I'm pretty intense on the bench too. So it was fun. I never had my kids taunt kids. They taunted kids though, and they get pulled right away. But we played relentless defense. And when we drew it back, when we were getting nice, we went from the diamond press extended to the other baseline, taking it back to half court. So you got across half court and those guys were licking their chops. Right. And so, that's what Auburn is. And Auburn's just, boy, they're like sharks with blood in the water. They're so good. So good. You have to appreciate them for what they are. I mean, you could say you didn't like watching them at the end of the game, just rubbing Purdue's face in it. And my line on Twitter was they had a full season's worth of highlight reel in one game. I mean, the alley-oops were just kept coming, right? And Bruce Pearl doesn't call dogs off because he's not the classiest dude. He's just not that way. He's not dialed that way. But, I mean, Painter didn't do this. That's okay. This is not the end of the world. Like somebody referenced earlier, these are pros. It's professional basketball with college jerseys. Need to be in verse says, Karen Grulak says, Caleb Love, but he's at his peak. What are we saying? Love Caleb, but he was, I love Caleb, but he is at his peak. You think there's no more in the tank, I think is what you're saying. So I don't think you're wrong. I think Caleb First is who he is. I don't think there's anything wrong with who he is. I just think he's not the guy that Purdue needs right now. Purdue needs just an absolute animal underneath, right? They need an animal. They need a guy who's, and I don't see that person on the roster. I just don't. Maybe Burgess can be that. I know Burgess is he's wild man a little bit, but he's just not that good yet, right? So it takes time. Again, that's going to be the theme. It takes time, as John Hawks said. Need to be immersed says, dumb question. Does Purdue spend less than other high majors in NIL? I know next to nothing about it. Wondering how competitive we are in this new age, which I hate. So here's one of the problems with the NIL era, okay? So if you don't understand the way it is, it's a third party, it's a collective, and you can give to it if you want, if it's something close to your heart and you think it's worthwhile. You give to it, and then as the budgets go, they decide how much they can spend every year on players. What Purdue has decided is they're not going to spend on the front side, generally, in recruiting. They're not going to go and say, we're going to get this guy. We're not going to get into a pissing match with Miami, for instance. That was the first introduction of this, was Nigel Pack getting $800,000 in a luxury apartment down in Miami, and Purdue couldn't give him. I don't know what Purdue offered. I really don't. Everything is through shady, murky waters. We don't really know anything. There's no transparency. We don't know. The stories aren't told on the news, so you're not wrong for not knowing. You have to go to message boards and trust the source you're hearing, or talk to a guy whose neighbor is the dad of a player. It's awful. But does Purdue spend money? They do so what Painter wants to do is he wants to reward guys that he already knows are proven commodities. So a guy like Braden Smith, Braden got paid this offseason. Braden also got offers. Very good sources tell me he got a very, very lucrative offer from Gonzaga for the second offseason in a row. And he went to Painter. I don't think he played hardball with him. He just said, here's what I'm getting offered. And then Purdue countered it, from what I understand. I am not going to give you the numbers on the air. I'm not going to do that, because my numbers I've heard are totally based on hearsay. The numbers are relatively high, but we do know that Edey got $1.5 million. Purdue found a way to do that. They went up and played a game, and he got the gate because he's a Canadian resident. He couldn't take the NIL money directly because of tax law or some sort of law. Purdue paid money because they had to, right? They had to, and they wanted to see Edey there. Does Purdue pay the same amount as the competitive teams in the Big Ten? Sure. Are they paying an elite amount of money? Probably not, if we're guessing. Do you want them to? That's the next question. And if you do, and you're not giving hundreds, if not thousands of dollars yourself, you're part of the problem. If you believe that, if you think that's the answer, fine, nut up and go and put your wallet where your mouth is and stop just spouting off on Twitter. If you're not that person, not that guy, and you don't believe in this system in this era, I mean, they're gonna have to continue to develop, and it's gonna take time. So there you go. There's an editorial statement. Joe Inslee says rim protector is missing. I think everything would be different with Jacobson, and I agree. It would be different, but he had learning to do too. Purdue may have taken some lumps regardless. Like a team like Marquette would have taken it at Jacobson too. Texas A&M would have taken it at Jacobson, and today Auburn would have taken it at Jacobson. They would have. And he would have learned, and he would have gotten better. His upside's very good, and he's going to be good when he comes back. No doubt about it. But these teams that I'm talking about, they are just laden with really strong guys and really aggressive systems, right? Just bulldog mentality. I don't see Jacobson as a bulldog. I see him as a guy who's a good rim protector because he gets up off the floor quickly. He's 7'4". He's got great feet, really good hands. But he's not Zach Edey. He's not 310 pounds when Zach was his heaviest, right? My guess is 260? 7'4", 260? I'm guessing. I don't know. I'm just completely guessing. 260 is a tough thing to say because it's a lot of weight. But when you're 7'4", it's different. So probably lighter than that. Yeah, Purdue would be better with him, but would they be good or very good right now? I don't know. Will Hardy says, hard watching Caleb play like this after he got very meaningful minutes his freshman year. Just looks a little hesitant out there. Yeah, and I talked about this in a show recently. I compared him to a guy from a long time ago named Mel McCants, who was really good out of the chute, really good as a freshman, and then never really climbed the charts. I think there's a good comparison to be had there. Very different type of players, but same thing, that instant impact. And first being Mr. Basketball, you knew he was good, but he's not exactly what Purdue needs right now, I'd say, right? In a different system, he'd be great. John Hawk says, GBI reporting that 2 years of junior college won't count against 4 years. Oh, that's correct. Yeah, it's not just GBI reporting, that's true. You'll be a freshman after junior college, so it's like an extension of high school. So guys that, let's say you had a late growth spurt and you didn't have many stats senior year, you go to JUCO, you get bigger and stronger. You come out, now you're a freshman out of JUCO. Never ending. The sands are still shifting beneath us. Joe Hensley says, when's the last time First took a three? This is a good question. I liked, that was one of my favorite things about First. He would pop out to that corner, hit threes. He didn't really do that much anymore. Joe Hensley says, no way Purdue pays more NIL than IU. No, Joe. IU pays elite amounts to NIL. This offseason especially, they paid a ton. And they have different sorts of alums that this is what they do. They throw money at the problem. They have done this for a long time. Before NIL was legal, IU was doing this. IU was mentioned in FBI cases about the shoe companies, Adidas specifically. IU throws money at players. They do it, okay? And did they do it this offseason? Yes. IU never has a problem with talent, ever. Okay, so all of you out there who think it's just a quick fix, spin the NIL, go be IU. Watch IU play. Watch IU play this season. Ask IU fans that are friends of yours, level-headed ones, say, what do you think? Did they get the deal that they wanted out of the NIL? They're going to tell you no. This is a frustrating team. Guess what? IU is still struggling to find identity, even though they paid a ton of money and went and got Ballo, right? They need a big, tough guy inside. They got him, right? They still need scorers. They still need shooters. They got issues. So, John Hawks has a great point. There's no billionaire engineers. No, Purdue has a bunch of people that make a good living, right? You've got engineers, you've got businessmen, you've got shoe designers. That's a joke. But no, there's not a lot of billionaires. You've got one of the guys in the family comes here. There's a very successful family. I think maybe it's a patriarch of the family is one of the trustees. It's the only trustee I know by name. He's got a lot of money and he gives a lot of money. I know he does, right? And then you've got the red gold tomato fortune, but they don't give much to Purdue athletics, I don't believe. And then you've got the Redenbacher family, and I don't think they give much money to Purdue sports. So IU has a benefactor that's a billionaire. That's nice. That helps out a lot, no doubt. But why compare to IU? I mean, they're in the state, but why compare to IU? That's not worthwhile. Not for me. Beanverse says, thanks for the info. I might be old school, but I just don't like the idea of buying college teams. They didn't call, and that's my opinion. No, they didn't. They didn't call me either. My whole rub, and I was going to do an entire quick cast about this week. One of the problems that I have with the NIL era, and I may expound upon this in the near future, is that it's not making the game better. That's my biggest. I liked college basketball and football before all this stuff happened a lot. I liked it a lot. I'm not against kids getting their piece of the pie, but I would argue before they were doing pretty well. There's some sad stories out there about kids not being able to afford whatever, but I can tell you almost everybody I knew that played football and basketball at Purdue was doing just fine. Even before they could legally pay them, everybody was doing fine. Next year's going to be different. In case you don't know this, there's going to be regulated a very deep vat of money for all teams that are willing to do it. The Big Ten teams, this is where it's different. If you don't understand this, Big Ten TV revenue is higher than any other college conference. It's higher than the SEC even. Okay. Where they differentiate themselves is ticket revenue is different in the SEC. But the elites of the Big Ten, they sell a ton of tickets to make a lot of money there. And then they have all these clubs and things like that boost it up. But there's going to be a $20 million cap for football. They spread out among the roster. Everything changes next year. That's the thing. It's so hard to all you guys who don't understand it. It changes again. At the end of this school year, at the beginning of the spring, the summer, everything changes. And it actually gets better because it gets more regulated. That is the key to all this getting better. I mean it. Regulation, contracts, transparency. So I've been beating that drum for a long time, and I'll continue to beat that drum. Rudy Ray Moore says Purdue, love Purdue, but face it, Zach Edey was a generational player. Wow. Lived through this with Big Dog Robinson when he left Purdue. I knew we were going to fall off the season. Well, Rudy, I was at Purdue then. Purdue won 2 more Big Ten championships after Robinson left. So there's a little bit of a problem. They weren't a national power by any means. They were ranked, right? So Purdue, remember, back-to-back Big Ten championships. Robinson was the first one of those. So it's different. This is different. And I still, Glenn Robinson, I was there when he was playing at Purdue. Edey was more impactful, just more impactful. But you can't diminish that team, that unit, including Lance Jones, was incredible. Everybody's role was very defined and very needed and very dialed in. But obviously, having Superman on the team makes a huge difference. Purdue needs to prove to everybody, including themselves, that they can do this without Edey. And they've done it before, and they'll do it again. It's just they need to prove it now. You got to have somebody step up, like a Gillis. People are clamoring for Gillis, and there's some interesting discussions on Twitter tonight. And I mean this. These were really interesting, not that bad. There are a lot of bad discussions too. But people saying Purdue needs Gillis. Yes, they need Gillis to set the precedent for toughness. And Ohio State just put this game away. But they do need guys that create their own shot. Purdue is struggling so badly creating their own shot. A lot of confidence needed. A lot of things are needed. So, Chris talking about private equity firms looking to own shares of athletic departments. Yeah, it's not only that. It's if there are other pro sports teams that are looking to own part of college football team programs. Everything's about to change. If you don't know anything about that, it is wild. It'll blow your mind. Doesn't make any sense. Yeah. I don't know how any of that's going to work. And I don't know. I can tell you this much. I don't know how much longer I'll be around. Pro sports to me, I like college. I like pro football, NFL football a lot. But I don't care for the NBA. I want Purdue players that want to go to the NBA to do their best and kick ass there and make money and whatever. But I don't care about the NBA. I do care about the NFL a little bit because I like the sport more. But I don't bet. That's the other thing. Betting, if you don't bet, you don't realize how important that is. It's driving this whole business. But yeah, there are a lot of moving parts here. Andy Buck says IU has a culture problem, and Hawk says IU sucks. And I think you're both right for different reasons. But yeah, IU does have a culture problem, but they also have systems problem. They have a issue with they need a coach that can be complimented by his staff, but this coach is not willing to allow his staff to compliment him. So Rudy Raymore says, I graduated from Purdue, live in Chicago. It's a bunch of Purdue alums in Chicago, especially in the financial industry, that donate to Purdue. Yeah, the business majors give money to Purdue, but I give money to Purdue, but not like the money that's needed. That's the thing. The money that you guys are talking about, many of you are hinting at. There are plenty of people give money to Purdue. Purdue has a big alumni association, but you have a lot of very logical people, like somebody referenced engineers. This is logic. And I would say the next thing is, we're not going to get any deeper into giving. $5 Tommy says, Edey made all these guys average players. Edey made all of these guys their average players and coach without him. I don't agree with that assessment, Tommy. I'll tell you why I don't. you can define the terms in your short statement. What does average mean? Average means you're right in the middle, right? Purdue was not right in the middle of the Big Ten before Edy. They weren't. Are Purdue's players average? Braden Smith had a bad night. Braden Smith's not average. Fletch Lawyer's not average. Fletch Lawyer led the league in three-point shooting last year. I would argue that Heidi and Colvin are not average. I would argue, I can tell you this much. You guys can all write off freshmen all you want because they've struggled to be freshmen. They're freshmen. You're doing it, you're being hasty and you're making a mistake. There are freshmen on this team right now that are going to be great. I can tell you, Jakari Harris was an absolute mother in high school. Do not rule this guy out. He's a fighter. He's a really skilled player. He's not shooting well right now. He can shoot. He can shoot. And he's physical. And he's tough. Cox is a competitor. Cox is, man, he's got a chip on his shoulder. But Cox kind of comes from nowhere. If you don't know that, if you haven't kept up on recruiting, that's a guy that you'd say, oh, this is a middling player. And he looks like the best freshman right now, right? You can throw, how about this? If you want to do whatever you want, Tommy, and throw it all out and say the whole program's defined by Edy. If you're not a Purdue fan, I don't really give a damn about your opinion in this case. But you're wrong. Your assessment's wrong. The statement's wrong. This is not true. Metal Scholar 007 says, I think a lot of us knew this non-conference schedule was going to be a real crucible for the new look team. Agreed. It's a tough non-conference schedule. I still think Purdue will be in contention for a Big Ten championship. I don't agree with that last part. I just don't. And I hope I'm very wrong. And I'll eat crow. Whenever I'm wrong, I tell you guys, I'll go back and admit it. That's the thing that's great about being the person who's up here time and time again. You have to admit you're wrong. And I will admit it if they contend for a Big Ten championship. I just don't think they have the ability to do it because they're not strong enough away from home. You win all the games at Mackey, and that puts you in what? 7-8 loss territory, right? And if you have 7-8 losses in Big Ten, you're not going to contend for a Big Ten championship. You need 4 or 5 losses to contend for a Big Ten championship. Maybe 6 to be right there. 7-8, it's not going to do it. And that's what Purdue's going to have. Chris says NBA is a terrible product. I completely agree. Andy Buck says Edy did make life easier. This is true for his team because it required so much attention. Freshman Fletch and Smith stepped up in a big way. And what they did is pretty Herculean. If you look back, 2 freshmen to start the entire season is incredible. Have to give them credit. That team overachieved. They did. And they were consistent. And what they did in the pre-con with those 2 freshman guards is incredible. Just absolutely incredible. You can go back, look at that. Name a team in America that goes through and wins its preseason tournament. That was the Phil Knight year, right? The Phil Knight Invitational. And they went through Murderer's Row, the best programs in America, and they did it with 2 freshmen starting the entire time. And then they just kept going. It's incredible. It's wild. Michael says, I agree with you. Agree with this. Agree with you on this, Boiler Dowd. This is the middle of the pack team in the Big Ten this year. That's what I think. So that's not a bad place to be in a year where you're retooling. I have been saying this since August. I think that this team is going to be, this is not the season. This is a transitional year. Next year is the season everybody should be pointing at. I hope Purdue isn't pointing at that. I hope Painter is. I know Painter's not going to sit on the laurels. I know this. Some of you think you should just throw Painter out. Look at his record and compare it to other Big Ten coaches, pals. Tell me it's mediocre. Go ahead. Just do it. Challenge you. Go do it. You're the one who's bringing up big opinions. Go do it. Rudy Moore says, the reason I'm not worried is Purdue has one of the top 3 college basketball coaches. This is where I stand. Izzo, Self, Painter. I think you put, he's in the group. One thing he's lacking when you look at the names you mentioned, if you bring other names into it, you could put Mark Few in there, right? Mark Few is with Painter, though. Mark Few has never won a national title. Matt Painter has never won a national title. Few is just like Painter in that way because he's gone to a championship and lost. He's gone to a Final Four. And Painter's now in that elite company. And Painter's winning percentage in conference is incredible, right? Painter's winning percentage in pre-con is even more incredible last couple of years. Sure, some people say he's mediocre, but that's a dumb-ass statement. And that's it for me. I hope you guys have a great night. Like I said, go watch some football. Take a load off. Purdue doesn't play until the 29th. They play Toledo at Mackey. God bless you. Hammer down. Talk to you soon. We'll see you.